Invited guests, good morning. And as I say good morning, I also bring you warmest greetings from IEPA. We are happy you are here this morning to participate in the colloquium. We have gathered at this colloquium to share knowledge on the theme, the role of educational planning in enhancing Ghana's education system, access, quality, and relevance. Our education system continues to evolve and is expected to serve a more technologically oriented society in which students are expected to have essential knowledge and skills to function in a knowledge society. The evolving nature of the education system places new demands on educational leaders, managers, and more importantly, on planners to plan towards the provision of education that is available and affordable, fit for purpose, and for sustainable development. It is the agency for the provision of education to address access, quality, and relevance that we have come together this morning to deliberate on how to anchor firmly educational planning in Ghana's education system. Try and error decisions result in poor decisions that eventually heighten indifference toward educational change initiatives. To put emphasis on educational planning, Kowalski says, an education system adopting intended planning to embark on continuous change fulfills its mandate of utilizing resources from society to transform learners into citizens who contribute to the growth of the society. Our society, more than before, places a premium on educational planners who can collaborate with other stakeholders to create a vision of success for all students and who can use their skills to communicate effectively and build a learning community. It is in meeting this expectation that the Institute for Educational Planning and Administration has invited us to participate in this colloquium to share ideas. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this colloquium is to provide us with a platform to explore role expectations of educational planners to effectively set the direction and parameters towards the provision of education based on rigorous curriculum delivered by well-trained teachers using adequate resources and supported by effective educational leaders, managers, and planners. May we have fruitful deliberations, and once again on behalf of IEPA, I welcome you to our colloquium. Thank you.
given the opportunity to introduce the person for this occasion, the chairperson for this occasion. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The chair for this special occasion has taught mathematics at the various levels of education for many years. His areas of research interest include social cultural issues in mathematics teaching and learning of mathematics content, curriculum development, internationalization of mathematics education and teacher education. He has been involved in the number of teacher education curriculum review projects in Ghana. He has also been involved in the number of international research projects funded by international agencies such as Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, and USAID and DANIDA. Assessment of classroom level impact of STM projects in the IEPA North District of Ghana, for example, was a JICA project he and others carried out to find the impact of the project. He has also been engaged in the number of local research projects, including an investigation of untrained teachers' diploma in the basic education trainees level of mastery of English, mathematics, and science contents, a research project which was funded by the Institute of Education, University of Cape Coast. He has won a number of awards and honors, namely Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, Scholarship in 2002, Monash Graduate Scholarship, and Monash International Postgraduate Research Scholarship in 2007, British Academy Visiting Scholar Award in 2011, Interdepartmental Research Support Grant by Drake, UCC in 2017, and Visiting Scholar to Melbourne Graduate School of Education, Australia in 2007. The chair for this occasion holds a PhD in Mathematics Education from Monash University in Australia. He is presently an Associate Professor in Mathematics Education and the Dean of School of Educational Development and Outreach at the College of Education Studies, University of Cape Coast. With a round of applause, shall we please welcome the chairman for this occasion.
Opening remarks read by Professor Ernest Kofi Davis on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Joseph Garte Ampia, at the Colloquium on the role of educational planning in enhancing Ghana's education system, access, quality, and relevance, held at the main auditorium, University of Cape Coast on 2nd July 2019. Keynote speaker, the Deputy Director General, Ghana Education Service, members of IEPA Governing Board, Provost of Colleges, Deans, Director of IEPA, Registrars, Heads of Department, President, Conference of Directors of Education, Regional, Metropolitan, Municipal, District Directors of Education, Principal Planning Officer, and Head, PBME, MOE, Heads of Schools, members of various unions, students, invited guests, participants, members of press, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my profound gratitude to the Institute for Educational Planning and Administration for the invitation to chair this colloquium on the theme, the role of educational planning in enhancing Ghana's education system, access, quality, and relevance. On behalf of the university and on my own behalf, I welcome you first to the University of Cape Coast and second to the colloquium. Ladies and gentlemen, my understanding is that this colloquium is to provide the opening for stakeholders in education to share ideas with the aim of building a consensus on how educational planning can enhance access, quality, and relevance of Ghana's education system.
A meeting of this nature also creates networking arrangements that will enable stakeholders not only to build professional knowledge together, but also to motivate each other to act tactically to bring about improvement in education. Since its establishment in 1975, IEPA has been at the forefront in the training of educational administrators, managers, and planners in the country. This colloquium being organized demonstrates IEPA's leading role in education and educational planning in particular. It is also timely because January 2020, IEPA will be upgraded to a UNESCO Category 2 institute, hence a regional center of excellence with its mandate emphasizing on educational planning, and we are very proud of that. Again, this colloquium could not have come at a better time than this, when our education system is experiencing transformation and expected to create a culture of learning that connects students with relevant, authentic learning experiences to make them globally competent for the future. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I accept to chair the program and pray for your support and cooperation. I thank all stakeholders here present for realizing the importance of this gathering and taking time off their busy schedules to be part of this morning program. I strongly believe that this colloquium will achieve the desired results and provide participants the opportunity to advance the course on the team. Once again, on behalf of the entire University of Cape Coast community, and on my own behalf, I wish to warmly welcome you to University of Competitive Choice. I wish you a productive and fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much for the audience. God bless you.
I would first like to say something very small about the designation of IEPA next year as a UNESCO Category 2 institute. Because we should be proud in Ghana that IEPA is going to be designated as a UNESCO Category 2 institute. There are only 94 of such institutes around the world. And so we should be extremely proud of this designation. Because it is done when UNESCO has realized that an institute possesses certain specific specializations in one of the fields of competencies for UNESCO. And I believe for IEPA it is for education. And IEPA has distinguished itself as an institute in our sub-region and increasingly on the continent in terms of education planning and all of the research, data, and information that they are able to provide both for policy practitioners as well as other educational practitioners. So I would like to congratulate IEPA in advance. And we hope when the official word comes in next February, that we'll be here to celebrate with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely humbled and privileged to join you this morning here at the University of Cape Coast to participate in this all-important colloquium as it has far-reaching implications for the future of education in our country. I bring you warm greetings from both the Director General of Education as well as the management of the Ghana Education Service for this occasion. And I would like to inform you that the Director General sincerely wanted to be here. And as late as last evening, he called me to ensure that I was going to be here. I have an equally important assignment at 12 noon, but when your general asks you to go, you must go. So he sends his greetings to you. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the government of our President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is fully committed to education as a vital springboard in our development agenda. The government strongly believes that effective teaching and learning leads to the expected educational outcomes that we seek in Ghana, and that there is the need for better practice, professional training, and administration in education. The government also places a huge premium on education and as a fundamental tool in transforming our economic and industrial fortunes, making the training we provide to both students and professionals very essential. It is therefore very notable that as early as 1975, at its inception, the Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, in a collaboration between the Government of Ghana, UNESCO, and UNDP, has distinguished itself in the direction and contributed significantly towards the growth and development of the education sector, with the need for government to do even more to ensure that quality research outcomes that this institution delivers are adapted for the right purpose. Mr. Chairman, it is in this context that I am delighted with the theme for today's colloquium, which examines the role of educational planning in enhancing Ghana's educational system, access, quality, and relevance. This theme is apt, Mr. Chairman, for our time because it so succinctly captures the essence of the direction in which our education system is headed and the planning dimensions therein. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the importance of planning in any educational framework cannot be overemphasized. First, planning in education properly ensures that institutions and institutional or educational systems succeed. It helps to clearly define goals and how they can be achieved. Further, we are all aware that planning in education saves time and helps to manage efficiently the limited resources that are available and at our disposal. And for a country like ours, where there are multi-dimensional challenges, not only in the education sector, but across a broad national spectrum, this is particularly important in order to avoid waste. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, educational planning further provides guidance, especially in executing policy in a coherent and focused manner. With the large-scale multi-regional and district-level structures of education that we have in Ghana, planning helps to improve management systems and ensure effective leadership at all levels in order to derive the right educational outcomes. Again, Mr. Chairman, educational planning also allows us to answer largely the question of access, and it has also helped us as a country to attain gender parity. It has provided us with the necessary information to make informed decisions and designed interventions to address issues of access and quality. Mr. Chairman, even though there was and still is rigorous debate on the government's timely intervention of the double-track school calendar, and rightly so for the debate, it has also largely addressed our short and medium-term issues of access to senior high schools around the country. The associated interventions that we have also put in place also seek to ensure that the all-important quality aspect of education is not compromised in our quest to provide access to more and more young students. Finally, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen, you will no doubt be aware that at the beginning of the next academic year in September of 2019, the Ghana Education Service will be rolling out a new standards-based curriculum for our schools at the basic level. And subsequently, Mr. Chairman, we will begin work on the curriculum to improve our junior and senior high schools, at the junior and senior high school levels. We have been able, Mr. Chairman, to achieve this primarily because of the results that has come out of the diligent planning and research in collaboration with institutions including the IEPA and also led by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as the main implementing agency of the Ministry of Education, we in the Ghana Education Service remains fully committed to ensuring that our students remain relevant and deliver improved learning outcomes to meet the dynamics and the challenges of the 21st century and in a global community. And we also are committed to ensuring that our children come out of our schools with the right set of skills for national development. We also want to ensure that our children, Mr. Chairman, are able to compete effectively with their counterparts all over the world in the global marketplace. We are confident, Mr. Chairman, that improving access through initiatives such as the Free Senior High School Policy, the updating of our curriculum to make it more relevant for our times, investing in our teachers and teacher training methods and systems, and the strengthening of our planning, management, and accountability structures that is reflected in the restructuring of the Ghana Education Service will make significant strides towards these goals to ultimately benefit our dear country. Education, Mr. Chairman, remains the primary tool by which we can transform the lives in this country, improve social mobility, and empower our citizens to take their destiny into their own hands through abundant opportunity, and must collectively as a nation join to drive improved learning outcomes. Mr. Chairman, before I conclude, I would like to encourage all of us that are here to view the work we are doing in our profession as what it properly is, a fight to secure the future and the survival of our country. Human resource, we are all aware, are the vital elements that are necessary in any national development effort. And Mr. Chairman, we are also all aware that our vast natural resources are not and have never been enough to bring us prosperity and development in itself. But we believe in the Ghana Education Service that with quality human resource that match the wealth of our natural resource, we will be able to effectively meet our needs, compete on the global stage, and provide our people with the opportunities and living standards that they deserve. So I charge all of us here to to come together to guarantee a better world for our children. Mr. Chairman, I would like to assure you that the Ghana Education Service is open to engaging with the IEPA as well as all of our colleagues gathered here in the important area of education planning, and we really look forward to establishing new and continuing our already existing strategic partnerships. I am confident, ladies and gentlemen, that this second colloquium, which I believe will be only the second in a series of colloquiums, will be successful in its aims and objectives, and I wish you all well in your deliberations. I thank you for your kind attention.
And as I said, from the PPME is the Planning, Budgeting, Monitoring and Evaluation Division of the Education Ministry. So from where I sit and where I work, planning is therefore the work we do to identify whatever educational challenges we have as a country, the thinking that goes through to establish what the issues are or what is contributing to whatever issues or challenges that we have, the processes that we go through to identify strategies and activities and prepare to invest resources to implement whatever activities that we may have come up with to address whatever challenges that we have as a country. As educational challenges that we have as a country. As you may be well aware, listening to Dr. Amache and Dr. Tando as well as they spoke, the challenges that confront the education sector is huge and numerous. Dr. Tando said it's multidimensional, he coming from GS. Indeed, the challenges that confront us are huge, so many of them. And so, we, on an annual basis, on a weekly basis, on a quarterly basis, within the ministry, would have to go through these processes of identifying the best ways to use our resources that comes to education to address the challenges that we have, in the hope that it will lead us to the achievement or attainment of the educational goals of Ghana. Let me end by saying that critically, we go through this process because our educational resources is limited. We never, ever, and I'm not sure I know of any country in the world which has sufficient resources to address all the challenges in the education or to do the things for them to be able to achieve all the educational goals that they have. And so that, in my view, briefly, is what education planning is. Thank you.
We can look at it as a way of thinking about the future, the brighter future, and how we want to arrive there. And how we want to arrive there, first of all, means that we know where we are now. And we put in place certain measures. These measures include the resources that need to be put in place. Some of these resources that we are usually aware of may be human resources and material resources. The human resources may need some preparation, so the planner or planning will involve taking steps to ensure that these persons are properly trained. So we have the appropriate human resources. Then the material that we also need to ensure that we take the various steps to get to that desired end. We put them in place to ensure that we get there. Educational planning would enable us also to monitor what we we are doing, if we are doing something and we do not plan how to implement it and to monitor how to implement it, then it is just as well as telling ourselves that we don't care what will come out in the final analysis. So educational planning actually ensures that we have a particular end in view. It is not just about being there to do just anything, but being conscious of a desirable end. If it is about ensuring that we train a certain number of students, how many are they? How should they be trained? Who should train them? What resources will be needed in training them? At the end of the day, if we look back and assess our performance, what have we achieved? All these fall into the domain of educational planning. And so I have combined the three dimensions, the three principal dimensions of educational planning, the nature of planning. So first of all, it is a philosophy, just thinking about it, which is very important. And this is what we often do. But if we end here, we may be failing. But if we put it into the next level, which is the process, then it means that we are aware that we begin at a certain level and then move towards the desirable end. And then the next level is the structure itself. What is the structure? So quickly, it gives you an idea that you have the beginning point, you need this point, and then you need all these points in place. And that is how you're able to monitor what you have set yourself to do. Thank you very much.
Strategies and processes put in place for me to implement educational policies. Now, the educational director is responsible for implementing the policies of education at the pre-tertiary level in the districts. And therefore, the planning of education tends to give me an idea of what I should be working towards. So it gives me the direction. And then it gives me what I am working and aiming at. It gives me the success rate at which I should be working. And then also I look forward in applying to get the resources for me to get to where a district, as a district director, where my students should get to and where my teachers should get to. And therefore, in the planning of education, I see a system where I, the director, can have something to look out, focus on, and work towards with the aim of succeeding in terms of student learning outcomes and teacher performance. So, in short, the implementer at the district level, who is the district education director, sees education planning as very important, both at the national, regional, district, and the school level. And that is where the district director is very active. The school level.
He sees it as a process, continuous going on, and identifying challenges. Prof talked about monitoring what we do, knowing where we are, and getting structures to make sure we achieve our goals. And the district director talks about being the implementer and it being important to give direction as to how we should go. So we have all established that educational planning is important at whatever level. So first we'll ask Mr. Ayensu, being the principal planning officer. Do you agree that educational planning has a specific role to play in enhancing Ghana's education system? And if you do, why?
Yes, I agree. I mean, if I don't, I will not have, or those who make policy and then the implementers as to what it is that we expect to do to achieve whatever goals that we set for ourselves as a country. Now, in doing this, or why we do this, is also because we never, ever get adequate resources to do all the things that we plan to do in education. We have goals as a country, given our challenge, we would want to improve or expand access to education. We would want to improve the quality of education. We would want to make education relevant. We would want to equip the children who go to our school system with 21st century skills. These are so many goals that we may have that we have in education. So the planning process then helps us to chart the path. So to be able to expand access, maybe we have to build classrooms. Maybe cost barriers may be an issue, so you may want to do free education, for instance. To improve the quality, the teacher may be a factor. It may be the supply of teaching and learning materials, or other management functions, management weaknesses that makes it difficult for you to realize the goal of quality education. You would want to equip or integrate technology in teaching and learning such that the children that go to our school system would be equipped with soft ICT skills. We have the teachers ready. If that's on, what do we have to do? We may have to fall on our teacher training institutions to train teachers with the requisite capacity to be able to deliver. And then beyond that, the most difficult part from my experience, how then do you allocate the that come to you to ensure that you get the best of it? So without going through this process, we may end up wasting our resources. We may end up, of course, going through implementation without planning, but not achieving the goals that we as a country may have set for ourselves. And that is why in education, for us to meet our national goals in education, for us to meet the Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is on education, as a sector, we have an education strategic plan, which is long-term and spans from 2018 to 2030. And in that plan, the ministry or the sector outlines so we have identified the challenges we have to access, equitable access, quality, relevance, and all of that. We have identified strategies and their related activities to the achievement of the goals of education. And critically, we have costed all of these things to know and done projection of what amount of resources within the period 2018 to 2030 the education sector or the education ministry is going to get, and what the gap is, what the shortfalls will be, which also becomes a basis for us to engage whatever, be it our donor partners or private sector, to mobilize the necessary resources to implement the plan that we have. So, but Professor Moderator, without going through this process of planning and knowing what it is that you would want to do, where you would want to get to within the period, within various time frames in the period, we cannot do much. We will not be able to develop education in this country. And so that is why I see education planning to be a significant activity, to be a significant factor in the development of education in Ghana.
Okay, well spoken. You've spoken as a practitioner and a planner. That is the pivot around which everything evolves in your institution. Professor Nkoma, you are a scholar. So now as a scholar, what would you say is the...
And then going through the process to ensure that we get there. Yes, it's true that we can do anything. But if you do anything, you as well, and you just do anything. But if they are intentional, if if we are very rational, if we put there is the right resources in place based on the analysis that we have conducted on where we are. It is then that we'll be able to chart a certain path that will enable us to get to where we want to be. And so there will not come a time when, in a particular school, where we have the primary level of 6 classes. Let's take a typical situation of a school where we have 1 class for class 1, 1 class for up to class 6. So we have 6 classes in such a school. At most, the teaching personnel there will be 7. That is the head teacher being a teacher himself, and himself or herself, and then the remaining 6 teachers. You will not have a situation where you have 10 teachers in that school. Where from the other 3? How did they come there? If you were doing the appropriate planning, if you were actually charting the path of the real educational planning, that shouldn't okay. It means that there are certain classes somewhere. Educational planning ensures that everybody does what is to be done at the appropriate time, at the right time, and in the right place, using the right resources. Yes, we have limited resources as a country. And if we have limited resources, we cannot just toy with any kind of thing. If we plan, then we will know that we have limited resources, and therefore, rationally, we know that this is how far we can go, and this is the way we have to go. And so educational planning will ensure that with our limited resources, we'll be able to efficiently use those resources to achieve a certain target. That way it will mean that we set ourselves to achieve attaining a certain level with all the quality implications that should be there. And then also there it will enable us to know that how relevant are able to chart the right course based on rational decision of doing the things that we want to do those things very well, and ensure that we go the path in a very sensible way without just doing anything. Ensuring that we get to where we want to be, and when we get there too, we can look back and then evaluate whether we have attained what we set ourselves to attain. So it is very, very important that educational planning is made use of. If we make use of educational planning effectively, I believe strongly that many of the lapses that we have in the system will not have to be there, because educational planning would have informed us of our resources, what we have and what we need. If there are gaps, how we be able to fill the gaps. If we can't fill them in a certain way, how best would we circumvent the system so that we're able to get to a desirable end that we have set ourselves to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.
Educational planning. I'll look at it first. I'll take examples. For example, talk of assets. In the plan, in the educational plan, I'm expecting to see something more than just getting the children into the classroom. Such that say, oh yes, we have achieved the target. We now have this percentage of our children in school. No, I want to see a plan where adequate classrooms have been made available for the children who are entering the classroom. Not that alone, but I want to see classrooms where we have furniture, appropriate furniture, not where JHS children are forced to sit in chairs meant for class 2, class 3 children. I want to see a plan where the teacher who imparts knowledge is put in a place where the teacher himself is comfortable, is inspired, and is happy about his working environment. The working environment is so comfortable and attractive that when the teacher gets up and is going to school, he knows I am going to work. And that was both open and confident. In the plan, I want to see when we talk of quality and the planning for quality, I want to see a school where logistics are available for the teacher to use, where the teacher is able to access training, in-service training, and so after the pre-service training, he comes to the field and he has assets and can decide that, oh, within this break, this holidays, I can go for this training and upgrade my skills. We want to look at quality in terms of where the parents and the community are participating in the school activities. Parents are allowed to participate fully so that they can now question me, the director, if things are going wrong. And if we decide that we want quality, we want the children in school, and we decide that you parents sit aside, be there, we're going to do everything for you. Now, I'm the director sitting in the office. The parent, to me, the parent has no role. So how come the parent will come to me as a head teacher, a headmaster, to ask me for accountability? Why am I accounting to that parent? All I know is that the parent has brought the child to school, and the government is doing everything. Once the government is doing everything, I account to the government, and that is that. But if the parents and the community are made to participate, then they can ask me for accountability. They can ask me to account for the work I'm doing in the school, and I'm obliged to do that. Another tangible thing I want to see is that the policies that are brought to us to be implemented, the programs in the policies, are such that the community in which I'm operating, those programs are relevant to the community. I have worked in 4 districts which are dotted along the coast. Now, I take all the secondary schools in these districts that I've worked with. There is none, and so far I know that in the secondary school we have no program that is called fisheries. But these children coming from these communities see their parents as fishermen, going to fish. That is a career they have seen right from childhood. But they get to the secondary schools, they get to the JHS, apart from fish farming, some slight idea of it in their great textbooks, there is no practical learning about fishing. There is no program that a child can undertake and at the end of the day come out as an expert, as a graduate in fisheries, and therefore be eager to go into fishing big time and become a big-time fisherman. All these are things I look up for in the educational planning, so that when I go into my district, I know that the plans that have been made is appropriate for my district. I can tap in and say, these are the things I want in my district because this is what applies to us, and these are the resources I've been given, and so I am boldly working with the resources, and then I can focus on my target and the success rate that I want to achieve.
Okay, thank you very much. In what you have said, you have touched on issues of access, you have touched on quality, you have touched on relevance as well. Prof, will you say something about what she has said in terms of access? She's mentioned certain things, tangible things she would like to see in terms of educational planning, catering for access and quality.
Thank you very much. I really agree with everything that she has said. Indeed, it is educational planning that should cater for all the differences and the different categories of persons or communities and so on that we have in the country. We will realize that because we are not intentional, I keep using this word intentional, because we are not intentional about what we do things just for the sake of doing them. so that eventually, that is why we are not interested in even what we evaluate. We just do anything, and we don't evaluate, and they are just like that. The evaluations that we do are limited to certain statistics, but not about the qualitative improvement in the lives of the people that we are dealing with. And that is why I'm very enthused about the provisions that she has made. Educational planning per se is not the issue. It's not the educational planning that has failed. It is about the implementation. It is about the implementation. The implementation should be able to address all the differences of the community types that we have in the country. But because we are not very intentional, we just think that let's just do anything. So any child goes to any school, and we as a country too, we are only interested in ensuring that the child comes out, he passes, he has all the six A's, or he has something that will take the person to the university and so on and so forth. But we are not interested as a people in participating in educational provision. So at any angle, we are not interested. All that we want to see is where the results have taken the children to. These expectations are very urban-based. They are urban-based. If you go to the rural communities, the challenge there is that they do not participate in education, and they are also not, they don't even talk about education. All they know is that children go to school, and education is something somewhere. It is the children who go, but as for them, they know that it is something. They don't want to. Maybe somebody must draw their attention. Somebody has not done that. So they are not involved in education. They don't think about education. And all they know is that their children go there. So eventually, the relevance of education is not found in those communities. But as you rightly said, if the educational leaders would make sure that everybody is involved, we do not have to label them as being poor and therefore they cannot do anything. In fact, they take advantage of the fact that we are calling them poor. And so they stay back. But if they are poor, they are not poor in their minds. If we were involving them, you will realize that they will be able to provide something. They will be able to make some important decisions. They will help us in the decision-making process. And that may even help them to know that they were not poor. Don't they have money to attend funerals and be buying the clothes and the big things and so on? They do it, even in the villages. But when it comes to education, they are poor. And because of that labeling, they don't care about education. All that they know is that the child has to go somewhere. They have to walk by a distance to get to school and so on. So involving the entire communities, classifying them as important stakeholders in the educational process is very important. That will enable us to provide education that is relevant. And educational planning must do this. It appears that educational planning is not doing this yet. And I believe that if we are more conscious and more intentional, we will be able to locate these gaps and be able to address them in the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yensu, what do you say about educational planning? Having that link to ensure that it's doing what it has to do and ensure that people see the relevance of it on the ground.
Thank you. Within the system, there are structures that have been created and is intended to ensure that the community is engaged in the educational planning process. I'm sure because most of us are educationists, the thinking behind creating the school management committee as a part of educational governance structure was expected. The intention was to promote community participation in the school management processes. I will be quick to concede that it hasn't worked as had been intended. So it goes back to the issue of implementation. Your plan with the best of intentions, evidence has proven that community participation in school planning and management processes could lead to contribute to the attainment of the objectives that we desire for ourselves as a country in education. You plan it out, someone is expected to implement, somehow it doesn't work out the way you had planned it. So I agree, and I must also add that, but as a ministry, as I said, it's a continuous process for us in the ministry in terms of planning. And so we're always identifying issues and challenges. And for instance, in this case, we'll soon be rolling out some new strategies to revive like school management committees across the country to help ensure that we engage communities participate in school management so that we can get the benefit thereof. Another example I would want to use to illustrate my point, where we had sought to engage with communities to improve education and then make education relevant. We had in 2014 initiated a secondary education improvement project with funding from the World Bank in Ghana, which sought to improve access to secondary education in communities and districts we had found out to be underserved, and improve the quality of education, secondary education, in identified low-performing schools. So what do? We, like planners, like what we do, in selecting beneficiary communities or districts and then schools, you work with the data available. So we look at our education management information systems database, which is our annual school census, where every school in Ghana would have to fill it and tell us, report on certain key indicators. So I look at it, I want to look at a district, JHS to secondary transition rate, JHS 3 to SHS 1 transition rate. I look at it, I want to look at a school with so many of its facilities that are in poor state. I look at it and I want to look at a district with huge JHS enrollment, but little or relatively small secondary education capacity to target them. So you sit at the ministry level at GES headquarters based on the data that is come from the district and the school levels to select beneficiary districts and schools. And then you go out to find out whether what has come from the schools and the district is what it is on the ground, which ideally we shouldn't do as people doing planning in the ministry. So you go and you realize that if only me as the head of a school or as a key actor in management in a district or a region had been diligent in responding to the questionnaire. What do I mean? We found out that schools and districts we may want to target because of evidence available may not be as needy as schools and districts that didn't get, because we may not have been very diligent in providing the right kind of data or the accuracy of data that we provide to inform planning may not have been the best. So we have room to improve on that.
Okay, you've talked about the issue of collecting data being a challenge. All right. And before then, both you and Prof talked about the issue of the problem being the implementers, the implementation. So then, I'm asking all of you, who is supposed to do the implementation? That is the problem there. Anyone can answer.
Well, as I sit here, I know I'm an implementer,
Okay.
but I can only implement what they have prepared for me. The issue I'm bringing up is that our educational system is such that most of the things have been centralized at the top. So when the top says, go west, you go towards the west. I'm very happy. I was talking to the Deputy Director General this morning, and he informed me that they are really working towards the decentralization of education. The decentralization of education, in spite of the fact that when we sit back, we see challenges ahead of us. Yet, when we look at it, we can also see a lot of advantages to it. Because if, for example, I come from Achimansa, a very poor district, where the children are not performing at all. If in that district, I am the chief executive, and I'm given a target to ensure that the children pass, when I'm giving money for education, I'll make sure it goes into education. And I'll make sure that the director there implements policies based on what is available and what is pertaining in my communities, that is based on the strategic plan that the nation has drawn. So, for example, if we talk of children studying agric in Achimansa, in a typical middle of the forest of Ghana, we will be talking about how to grow timber trees. We will be leading children to have plans towards that. We'll be leading children towards cocoa cultivation, so that in their great lessons, children will be encouraged to understand this form of education. And then the chief executive will also push, because resources will be put towards it. Now, I want to come back to the participation of parents. When the man from ministry was saying that SMCs have been there for. Yes, SMC, the policy of SMC PTA has been there for ages, possibly 20 years plus, but it's not working. Can we go back to the drawing board? And I'm happy you said you are doing something up. I hope and pray that the implementers are involved. The implementers have been consulted and they have given a feedback as to why that thing is not working and what should be done. What we think when we sit down in the districts and in the schools is that, oh, they do it at the top and they say we should do it. Why? Because whenever the planning and the policies are being formulated, there's no social dialogue. We are not consulted. We do not come in. And so at the end of the day, when it's brought to me, I see it as, okay, my bosses say. I have not participated in the discussion. I have not contributed. None of my people can say, yes, we were there. This was our contribution. For us to accept that, yes, this is our plan, this is our policy. So I think that there is something that must be done. And what must be done is that implementers must be consulted. There should be social dialogue. The implementer should be able to raise up issues and say, this is what is happening on the ground. Can we do something about it? Can a policy be made and then we change something in our system? These are the things that we are looking forward to. And we believe that the ministry will be listening and the ministry will go by it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The ministry has listened. Do you want to say something very briefly? Okay.
Thank you very much.
But very briefly, because
All right.
we have more questions.
Educational implementing the planning process or the implementing component of the planning process is very important. As you rightly said, if you don't involve them, you don't empower them. If you involve them at the beginning of the planning process, let them make some inputs so they can own the plan. And thereafter, the implementation becomes very easy. Even when you have done it, why don't you invite them and walk them through so that they can still make some inputs where relevant so that they will own it at the very early stages and thereafter will be empowered to implement. The implementers are many. The GES itself is an implementer. You come to the district, the headquarters is an implementation level. Then you have the regions. It's still at it's implementation. At the district, it's implementation. You go to the school, it's implementation. You go to the classroom. All of this long chain is the implementation component. And all of these, if they are not effectively empowered, there might be some of them who might be bold enough to stick out their necks to be more transformational. There will be more transformational in the implementation process than just being transactional, just doing what we have been told to do. But if they were empowered earlier by being involved in the decision-making process, they will be able to know that, yes, we planned it this way, this is where we are, and this is how we can do it here. Because situations differ. And therefore, when it comes to Fatrikosie, it must be different from Fancheneko. The two cannot be the same. The circumstances in these two places might differ tremendously, but it is because they have been empowered. Now they will be able to use their circumstances there to know the right way of implementing it. And when the teacher gets into the classroom, because he has also been represented at the planning level, he will also feel competent enough to look at his special classroom situation to be able to adapt strategies that will ensure that at the end of the day, the children, the special children in his class, will all benefit effectively from the plan. But if this is not done, they may feel intimidated. They may think that, no, this is what they say we should do. Although that is not what they have told them. It is about intimidation. It is their mindset. If we will be able to change mindsets for proper implementation to be done, then involvement is important so that people will really feel empowered to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly. You want to say yours?
Okay. I like the applause from the 2 points. It tells me the audience really identifies with the points made. Let me add, however, that the plan preparation and development process, the ministry has always tried very hard to make it participatory. So the strategic plan development for this is long-term education development plan for the sector. It is not for the officers sitting in the Ministry of Education to sit in the offices or in the conference room with the minister and deputy ministers and develop the plan. No, that was not the process. It was participatory. There had been engagement with district directors, regional directors, GS headquarters, stakeholders. Okay, I, uh, some of my IEP planning experts had been part of the process, and I'm sure they can attest to this, that there had been engagement at the various levels, from plan preparation, identification of all the process, there had been engagement. And again, the plan that we develop for the country is not to be implemented as it is at the various levels. Indeed, every district education directorate is expected to adapt that plan and develop their ADIOPs, the district educational operational plans. So yes, we all do planning. There is a national level objective and strategy. You look within your districts, like for example, I was alluding to, whatever the needs you may have in your district, within your district plan, you identify the activities you may want to apply your resources to address challenges within the district where you can. And it is never, ever the expectation that you take the ESP as it is and implement it in the various districts. We recognize that various districts would have different or various needs that not with a national level plan. So that's why they are required to develop their jobs. So, admit, we need to improve on our engagement to reach a broader group of stakeholders. Much as I admit that we need to improve on that, it is not that we just do it at the national level and not engage at all. There is engagement across the levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we are all now coming to a consensus that with the educational planning, there has to be involvement of stakeholders, there has to be empowerment, and there has to be adoption of the main plan. Thank you very much. And Mr. Yensu, you mentioned along the line the issue of getting the right data. So in line with that, I will ask that as a country, do we have the capacity to ensure educational planning enhances our educational system? Do we have that capacity in terms of planners?
Thank you, Prof. There is always room for improvement. There is always room for improvement. We learn all the time. I, from KNUST, some were teachers who decided to join the civil service, amongst others. But the moment you enter, when we entered, the education ministry then decided to send us on a training in educational planning. And indeed, Professor Nkuma was our teacher. So he schooled us all and tried to instill in us the relevant skills in educational planning, which was with IEP in Paris. That's what then Professor Nkuma was our facilitator. So, but I agree that, as I said, there is always room for improvement. So we are always learning. That is what I'll say.
Thank you very much. So what you are saying agrees with a finding from IEPA's research last year, that we found out that most of the planners at the district and regional levels did not have the skills in educational planning. Would Prof like to say something about that, please?
Yes, at the headquarters, you may have qualified people, as he has rightly said. But if you go to the regions and the districts, those people there are people who can only collect and what they call statistics, It's just collecting the data, head count. So they have information on teachers, information on, and that is all. They are not people who can use the information for anything. They can't use the information. Also, eventually they will have to send everything to Accra, EMIS, before they can use it. So at that level, they are not planners. We don't have the capacity over there. Although IEPA has trained a good number of planners, they are not being utilized because they just pick anybody there. And the mindset is that it is about collecting information, collecting data, full stop. Planners, that is not their job. That's not the job of planners. And that is why we need to put the right people in the right places in the districts and regions. Put the right planners there so that they will be able to interrogate the data that they collect. Even if they are sending it, they have copies. They will be able to interrogate it to enable them make decisions there in collaboration with their directors and so on. So that over there, even over there at that level, they have information about their situation over there. And based on that one, they make certain informed decisions over there. So implementation does not necessarily mean that they don't make decisions themselves. They should be able to make decisions, but they have to make informed decisions. Based on what? Based on the statistics that they have collected and have analyzed. But if they cannot analyze it and they just have to send it away, as well, the directors will not get any information and they will have to rely on everything that comes from center only. Thank you very much.
Okay. So,
I have
yes.
a quick one on
okay.
this.
Just add to it whatever
Yes.
your reaction that you are saying.
At the district and regional levels, yes, we do not have qualified planners. We pick people with statistic background and mathematics, and then we put them in the department for them to collect data. The headquarters brings a template, and they fill the template. Once the template is filled and forwarded, we have finished. Yes, he was talking about ADIOP. Yes, annually, the ADIOP is prepared based on the ESP. But after the ADIOP has been prepared, we are supposed to give copies to our assembly and to the region for compilation to the headquarters. What happens then? I have prepared that I need this number of desks. I need this number of classrooms. I need this number of computers for my schools. Now, when it is sent, what happens? No resources come in for me to prepare maybe the KG furniture I talked about or the primary school furniture I talked about. At best, you would be there and you'll be called, okay, this number of furniture has been allocated for your district, come for it. You go and find out that instead of the KG furniture you wanted most, you have been given furniture for primary school. Or instead of furniture for JHS, all the furniture, maybe the 2,000 you asked for, everything is meant for primary school. So you have no other option than to allocate some for JHS. And that is why you can go into a JHS classroom and you see a child sitting on a desk meant for class 1 child. Okay. Because everything is at the top. Now, district directors are not allowed to do anything. Nothing. You can't do anything because the resources will not be brought to you for you to implement it as per what your district needs. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have mentioned a number of challenges in relation to educational planning in terms of capacity, in terms of resources. Hello? Right, so now let's look forward. Let's look at the bright side. Prof, what can we do to use our educational planning so that it is felt in our schools, in our districts, and it is more relevant to wherever we find ourselves. So what strategies can we put in place to ensure that educational planning is used well?
Thank you very much. Indeed, we are part of the global economy, and in 2015, we were expected to have covered the grounds of ensuring that everybody is educated. And that is what we call EFA, Education for All. By 2015, we still had over 450,000 Ghanaians who were not in school. They were walking around, school-going persons. This number has not reduced significantly as I speak now, because we have not been intentional about what we intend doing. It appears that we are paying lip service as a people. And I must say, sometimes I fear making that statement, but sometimes there's too much politics put into educational provision in Ghana. And it is not helping us as a people. If we remove education from politics and see education as something that is real, something that is worth it, we must look at education as education and provide as we should, instead of putting some political touch to it. Because at the end of the day, everybody is every Ghanaian is a Ghanaian. And if we are able to educate everyone, at least the basic education that everyone needs to be able to function effectively in society, to enable us to contribute to educational development, national development and national transformation, then we have to be very intentional, and it is educational planning that will do the trick. And therefore, we must ensure that the planning department is respected. Everybody, whether it is just the philosophical kind of educational planning that we do, everybody does it, every Ghanaian. I'm not talking of planning, not talking of general planning, I'm talking of educational planning. The villagers, everyone is doing some little bit of educational planning, unconsciously or consciously. But I'm saying that we should be more conscious about it instead of just letting it be something in passing. So we need to ensure that the resources that are needed to make the planning process work, we need to ensure that they are provided. Again, let us, at the district levels and the regional levels, let us stock the units, the planning units, with the qualified personnel so that they will be able to help. If they get the information, they will be able to analyze using the technical expertise that they have, and thereby be able to support the directors and their level heads. So they will be able to utilize the education information that they have collected from their various areas to inform their decision-making in implementing the educational targets that we have. It will enable us to feel that we are part of the process and that we are not just passing by and then looking at education as something that, but rather seeing education as something which is a real and very important, very, very important public good that everybody must have. But to have it, we need planning. And if we can get the planning, we need the technical persons there. So we should be very intentional about training them and then ensuring that they are put in the right places to work. And if that happens, I believe that we'll be able to improve on the situation as we have it today.
Thank you very much. Let's have concluding statements from Mrs. Ponkori and Mr. Yinsu, so that you tell us at the end of the day, what are the indicators you expect to see in our educational system to show that indeed educational planning is working?
Thank you very much. 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 Thank you very mu
Thank you very much. To borrow from Prof's statement, educational planning must be respected. I want to see a system where there is an interministerial approach to the planning of our education, and that plan must be respected. So that when I go to my MCE and I say, MCE, I need a school structure and maybe a Colloquium, MCE will not see it as, or politically, it is not very beneficial. So, no, I'd rather send it to Dansuma. He would respect the plan that we have put in place. Again, when policies and plans are being made, we want to encourage our ministry to have this social dialogue where implementers are fully involved so that we can accept it as our own and implement it at our level, taking into consideration our communities and what is available in our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Yensu, your final remark.
Well, as someone from the ministry, I have heard all of you.
Let's clap for it.
I am going with the right message, I hope. But the issue of staffing the district planning unit, budget unit, with the people with the requisite technical skills, I think it's important. And at the level of the ministry, GS headquarters, I know there is that realization. To the extent that GES, in dealing with the district, would have to, in terms of plan and budget decisions, they would have to give them eligible expenditure lines, as in you may have issue with quality. And then your activity to address the quality issue is to do enrollment drive. Tells you that clearly if the person doing the plan had that technical skill, that would not be it. So there's that realization, and I know Dr. Tandok talked about GES institutional reform. They are planning to work on that. So that's just assurance to all of you that something is being done. However, your message to the minister is clear, and I will go back with that message accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Yensu, Prof, and Mrs. Frempong-Curry for the discussion. It has been a very fruitful one. Thank you.
You have some down for it. Someone to tell us what it is. Any volunteer? Any volunteer?
The poverty has blocked the view of the peoples.
The poverty has blocked the view of
the peoples.
Okay.
So they can't see the blackboard.
So they can't see the platform. Any other? Yeah, there's a hand over there. Okay.
Classroom management is poor.
Classroom management is what? Poor. So this teacher should have known her pupils, her students. And then knowing your students, she's got to make an intentional agenda with all apologies to Professor Ankuma. And that intentional agenda is what? Planning. If she had planned well, she wouldn't have created a classroom scene that will first create a challenge of management, and then 2, create a situation where that pupil will stand and say, teacher, we can't see. So the whole issue, the core of management is planning. Management efficiency depends on planning efficiency. Without proper planning, managing access, equity, relevance, and quality becomes a trial and error activity. As the general saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So, Professor Chair, even though the topic mandates me to touch on planning and management, the fact that without proper planning, management cannot even exist, I have decided to focus or limit my presentation to the planning component of the presentation. And so the outline, I'll quickly give an overview of objectives and educational planning within the context of Ghana. Look at IEPA's role, and I ask the question, improving educational planning. Why IEPA? Then I'll look at IEPA and planning issues in sub-Saharan Africa, and then draw a conclusion. In Ghana, when you talk about education plan, then you're talking about strategies for improving equity. So improving equitable access and participation is very key. You're talking about improving quality. You're talking about bridging gender gap within the context of access, equity, quality, and relevance. And you're talking about improving management of educational facilities, resources, whatever you talk about. So just as the head of the Conference of Directors was trying to say, at the regional level, at the directorate level, directors have roles to play, all geared towards planning. We've heard a lot about that, so I wouldn't go into it. Now the other side, we want to look at the state of educational planning in Ghana. In 2018, the GES commissioned a profile study that was carried out by the IEPA. Wanted to find out the profile of education planning officers at the metro, municipal, and district levels. And IEPA worked in five regions. Worked in the Greater Accra region, the Central region, the Ashanti region, Eastern region, and then the Central and Western region. It was a small-scale study. They used just 20 education planning officers. Out of these 20, as many as 16 hadn't received any training in educational planning. And as a result, they encountered constraints Constraints in terms of managing data, and that one too, during the discussant, I think that one there was highlight. And of course, the honorable minister representative said he will carry the message as it is. There was also inadequate resources, both human and material. The 16 people who hadn't had any educational planning training had qualifications in some forms of planning. They have higher national diploma in technology, higher national diploma in statistics, Bachelor of Science in development planning, Bachelor of Science in information technology, Master of Science in development policy and planning, and Master of Education in information technology. One may argue, at least there was an element of planning. Just as in 2011, one deputy minister decided that all training of head teachers in the country should be moved from IEPA to GIMPA. And IEPA argued, public administration is not the same as educational administration. So you cannot interchange them. In the same vein, educational planning is not the same as planning building technology. And so it will be a mismatch. The context differ, and you need to understand the context so that you can contribute meaningful to that. So now, improving educational planning. We've heard a lot about ways of improving, but why IEPA? IEPA because the very establishment of IEPA was triggered by the need for educational planners. So the core of IEPA's mandate has been, and will always be educational planning. And that is why you cannot talk about improving educational planning without reference to IEPA. It is very critical. IEPA has built and strengthened capacity of educational planners, administrators, and leaders. Since its inception, it had informed educational policy planning and implementation through research. And I think it will be very informative to indicate that the whole reform in our education, so far as the JHS concept is concerned, was led by IEP. If politicians had allowed the proposals submitted by IEPA to go as it was, we wouldn't have had the challenges we are encountering today. IEPA has been at the forefront. Currently, IEPA is engaged in research, the result of one which I've already shared with you. IEPA is engaged in professional development through short courses. IEPA is engaged in delivering academic programs, and indeed it has an MPhil program in educational planning. And it's also engaged in consultancy and outreach programs. So far as training and preparing educational planners is concerned, IEPA stands very tall. Organizing service training programs for persons in planning units in our educational system. As I said, the academic program is already there. But patronage of the educational planning component has not been encouraging over the years. Since its inception in 2001-2002 academic year to date, IEPA has been able to train only 77 educational planners for Ghana. Only 77. And it is good that someone said, But you see, the dilemma, even these 77 educational planners, where are they? In our districts, in our municipalities, in our metropolitan directorate. Where are they? That's a very big question. So utilization of our products, educational planners who should be servicing the Ghana Education Service, who should be servicing the Ministry of Education, is not seen. And that serves as a disincentive for people to enroll on the educational planning program. Honorable Minister's representative, I hope this thing, just as you said, will be looked at. So we use educational planners for educational planning activities at all levels of our educational system. As an observation of IEPA trained educational planners connotes that about 80% are in the Ghana Education Service. But what do they do? And the remaining 20% are with tertiary educational institutions. We are yet to conduct a tracer study to find out whether they are within the planning division or they are placed somewhere else, which has nothing to do with educational planning. Ladies and gentlemen, educational planning issues have become a sub-regional issue. And this has been a primary concern for UNESCO. And that's the more reason the Deputy Director General was very happy that out of 94 Category 2 centers in the world, the IEPA, with the support of the Ministry of Education government, is becoming a Category 2 in 2020. And we need to be proud of that, so far as educational planning is concerned. The sub-region is confronted with problems of planning towards meeting challenges of incompletion associated with schooling, challenges relating to access, quality, equity, and relevance, and then challenges relating to opportunities for professional development. In fact, if you take West Africa, there are only 2 institutes that are tasked with some lineage with educational planning. IEPA, and then one in Nigeria. But we pride ourselves that we have made a mark. We have made the mark. To come up. It is IEPA's objective to ensure that collaborative research in the field of educational planning across the sub-region is enhanced through this Category 2 agenda. And once that is enhanced, it will definitely trickle down to Ghana to strengthen our base for developing educational planners. And so in the light of this, IEPA seeks to organize long-term and short-term training courses across the sub-region. And we have the resources to do that, and the facilities are also there to do that. And it is our hope as an institution that once we do this, then member states will harness research and innovation in educational planning to progress educational policies that will be linked to access, equity, and quality, and also help in moving Africa up so far as issues of quality are concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say in brief that the IEPA, with its experiences, expertise, and resources, is more than capable of facilitating the government's agenda of improving educational planning in Ghana. It is ready to become a Category 2 Center of Excellence in educational planning, administration, and leadership in the sub-region. And IEPA recognizes the fact that the government, and for that matter, the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service, is committed to provide the needed support to empower the proposed center to support UNESCO educational planning priorities in the West African sub-region. As I conclude, I want you to remember that without proper planning, managing access, equity, and quality in education will remain challenging. If we are committed to improving management of our educational system as a nation, then we must commit ourselves to investing in educational planning. And by that I mean that special attention should be given to IEP when it comes to disbursing the educational budget. Thank you, and God bless you.
Ishesupani bambo ni na refri trade yapo nyamiho kai humo frasi kai wujaremo kai wetetemo nefasi damano abrigara nyami yodo nyami batan pa yodo bambo mayenko nyami yodo Sushe jinehu kaide chanayo na pasi damano nekase chabuyeta se ate chawa ya fani chituju nekase jasideni nekase jayeyo oyodo 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 Nyame batan payodo namumaenka oyodo.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My name is Marinana Simpson. I'm a second year IEPA student. With my knowledge in policy making, thanks to Dr. Dijo, at least we know that for an idea to metamorphose into a policy, a lot goes into it. Just want to ask, is this new policy, that's a free SHS, is it going to change as the government changes? Because things.
So,
my second question.
Each one person.
Please, my question is, may I know if there could be any changes as to the cut-out point for the JHS, the BEC candidates to be able to get to schools. I realize that
Please allow. He meant cut-off points.
Cut-off points.
Let's allow.
Yes. I realize that there has been this let my people go, which I think, talking about quality education, how will it help? That is my question.
Thank you very much.
The minister's rep. It seems much attention has been given to free education for secondary education. And for that matter, basic school has been neglected. If you look at secondary school education, they are now providing them free meal, every school in Ghana. But come to basic education, not all, about 30% are now on the school feeding program. So what is the minister doing, or what is the deputy director doing about this? Secondly, is about the capitation grant that they give to the basic schools.
One person, one question.
So this one is important.
Please.
The oil.
We will allow you to come back.
KEA, a head teacher. Mine is an advice. I want to the planners, Mr. Ayens, too, as he said, when they are coming to build the structure for us, they should please add the furniture because it's not helping us. They shouldn't build the classrooms without a furniture. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your advice.
I'm Mr. Andrew Bafo, a teacher in KEA, commended Negua for Abraham. Mine goes to Mr. Isaac Vine, a member of the planning committee. Say, when you were speaking in the planning context that it wasn't specified until our mom, the president of all directors, came in and then made a specification that we also plan in regards with the welfare of the teachers. And right now in Ghana education system, the welfare of teachers is not being protected. On many occasions, teachers think increase in salary is the only welfare. Recently, Mr. George Somwa Bosompem died. He was being murdered. And we are not fighting for equity or equality with the military or others. But at least this man could have been given a state barrier in a way to empower the teachers in a way, and for all the nations also to know that at least teachers should be held in high esteem. So they should take it into account when they are planning.
All right, thank you
because
very much.
Because when our welfare is being taken into account, we are being empowered to work as well.
Thank you very much.
Policy, will they continue with change of government? I don't know. I do not know. And I emphasize, I do not know. What it is it's a policy. You may want to look at it as an intervention that is enabling many kids to go to have access to secondary education. Whether it will continue by next year or discontinue or by 2020 or 2024, I don't have any response. I don't know what will happen in the future. My skills does not enable me to be able to determine that. So that is it. I don't know. That's it. BEC cutoff. BEC cutoff. The last placement, the policy position was that candidates who had grade 9 in English and either English or mathematics or both will not be placed, will not progress to secondary education. So that was what was practiced. So yes, there should be a cutoff of 36 or 24 or 30. That was not the case. What the minister said should be done was to place every child who has gone through, except those who score grade 9 in either maths or English or both. So that is the position now. And I haven't heard a change in position, so that is what is going to continue for the placement of kids in our senior high schools. But I mean, it's a good forum. You can make proposal to the minister or to the ministry for consideration whether there should be cut off at a certain grade or not. Prof, the third question, please. Now, everything we do, the teacher is at the center of education policy in Ghana. Right? Okay. So the work is to ensure that the Ghanaian teacher takes the center stage of education policy and implementation in Ghana. Welfare issues, again, I can't make definite pronouncement on welfare issues. But all I can say is that the minister's commitment is to ensure that the teacher takes his or her rightful place in education development, education policy making in Ghana, as in whatever that will be done to encourage the teachers, to incentivize the teacher, to motivate the teacher to give of his or her best, is what the minister is. That is his interest. That is what I can say. Attention. Okay. Attention on free SHS to the neglect of the other levels of education. These are graduate students, I suppose. I would ask that one of us, you do an analysis, our education budget expenditure analysis for the education sector since the inception of free SHS. How that has affected focus on basic or other levels of education vis-a-vis secondary education. I'm sure once that analysis is done, because the information is out there, our budget, our expenditures is out there. Once that analysis is done, we'll be able to know whether there is an unusual focus on free SHS. Secondary expenditure is gone up, but as to whether that has affected, if you take education budget, the percentage that is spent on basic education and other levels of education. I leave it to you to do that analysis. Okay, that's it.
The role of educational planning in enhancing Ghana's education system, access, quality, and relevance. The IEPA, throughout its 44 years of existence, has researched and identified a number of critical indicators that influence performance improvement in schooling, as well as schooling outcomes. Among the outstanding indicators found over time, the role played by educational planning in fostering the enhanced educational provision that leads to improved student performance is not in doubt. Indeed, from Sierra Leone to Nigeria, there's no release of WAEC examination result that is not synonymous with public outcry by an active section of citizens on the quality of learning outcomes demonstrated in those examinations. In view of this background, it is only appropriate that this colloquium, which centered on the role of educational planning in enhancing educational system, access, quality, and relevance, has brought to the fore academics and technocrats in the education front to digest a number of issues on the theme that are expedient for improved national educational improvement, namely the connect between access, quality, and relevance around the theme for the program. Consequently, we put forward the following communique. The Institute for Educational Planning and Administration held a colloquium on the theme, the role of educational planning in enhancing Ghana's educational system, access, quality, and relevance, at the University of Cape Coast's main auditorium on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019. At the end of the proceedings, the following key issues and challenges have been noted. 1. Access to education in its varied dimension is topical. 2. Quality input and implementation issues, education and schooling data, training and continuous retraining of teachers, teaching resources, logistics, offices and officers in the system and institutional level, issues regarding addressing teacher shortage and technocrat shortage is also identified. 3. Performance outcomes, accountability, and relevance disconnect in educational provision in Ghana is also identified. Limited resources to care for the needs of the education and key reasons ascribed are also pointed out as the fourth point. The fifth point, limited number of educational planning bias UNESCO Category 2 institutes globally. 6. Strategy and policy disconnect identified between and among the major education stakeholders. For instance, between policymakers in the national office and regional MMDE, circuit, and school levels of education. 7. Decentralization of the education structures seem not to be working, a need for assurances of actual decentralization or devolution strategy to be enacted. It is additionally identified that the staff underutilization of personnel and material resources occasioned by the everything coming from the top syndrome needs to be addressed in the Ghanaian education system. 8. Management efficiency connects with planning efficiency, and hence policymakers and implementers need to tap into these in their programming. 9. The deficit proportion of educational planners in the Ghanaian education sector at both system and institutional levels identified. Patronage of educational planning program has not been the best since the inception of the IEPA, noting that only 77 graduates trained since its inception. Consistent with the identified major issues and challenges, the speakers and panelists provided a number of useful actions as well as information to include the following. 1. IEPA is pivotal in the design, implementation, and evaluation of educational plans as well as capacity building efforts and in education. 2. The Ministry of Education and GES agreed to foster new partnership as well as build on existing relationship with the IEPA with a view to enhancing educational planning to occasion improvement in education outcomes. 3. Universities and faculty members also need to be abreast with a key strategic agenda and policy of government to influence education in Ghana. 4. IEPA becoming a UNESCO Category 2 institute makes it all the more well positioned to care for the needs of the West African region. 5. The need for IEPA to collaboratively develop and support relevant agencies to enact policies and programs are that linked to grounded realities of the Ghanaian context. 6. IEPA to develop a portfolio for program, projects, and activity evaluation alongside the planning undertakings so that plans enacted are measurable at one breath and accountable to the relevant stakeholders on the other extreme. 7. IEPA to develop and enact education and training on data and data decision making in both institution and system levels. As a start, IEPA will need to seek appropriate support to undertake profiling of educational planning needs in the Ghanaian education system. 8. IEPA to work with Ministry of Education, NCTE, and GES, and other relevant state agencies to develop targeted planning and implementation programs for policymakers first, and secondly for policy implementers, whilst not neglecting the accountability structures in the education system. 9. IEPA to engage relevant government and stakeholders to occasion an interministerial and agency approach to educational planning. We believe that at IEPA, we have the required expertise and experience with a team of faculty members and resources to support the Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service, as well as other relevant related agencies to carry on agenda for improved access, quality, and relevance of education. End of our communique.
That recent study by scholars from University of Cambridge, UK, show that UCC's contribution to education research is the second among all universities in sub-Saharan African countries. I'm sure the contribution of departments like IEPA will take the first position next. So it means that we are the best when it comes to research. But with the contribution of departments like IEPA, I'm very sure we'll take the first position. We were second to University of Botswana. So when you talk about educational research in sub-Saharan Africa, we are second. It is evident from today's colloquium that planning is key to the provision of accessible, quality, and relevant education. I have learned my lesson from the presentation and the discussion. At my faculty, we will look at innovative ways of planning our curriculum in order to ensure that our programs equip our graduates to make teaching practical and relevant to the socio-cultural context of their students. Our humble representative of the minister, has also taken his lessons from the intellectual discourse. I hope you've all taken your lessons. Because if you are head of department, you are a curriculum leader. So you have to plan in order to ensure that the implementation yields the needed result. I am also happy to hear that there will be another colloquium next year. Director, am I right? So next year we'll have the third colloquium session. And that will bring us together again. On this note, I would like to thank IEPA for organizing this program and all of you for participating and staying throughout the program. I wish you a safe journey back to your various destinations. Thank you and God bless you all.